Okay, today we're going to be talking about the best street photography camera that I have ever used and why I just sold it on eBay. Hey everybody, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Nick. I am a full-time traveler and street photographer, living out of a suitcase now for a couple of years. I make videos mostly about travel photography, life in general as a creative person, so if that sounds like your cup of tea, feel free to follow along, all that good stuff. But yeah, this is gonna be kind of my final video about the T5. In the last T5 video I put out, I was talking about my frustrations with the camera a little bit, despite needing to use it for almost a year across a ton of different trips, and how, making do with the camera that you have, even if it's not perfect, is far more valuable than worrying about the gear. This video is not that. This video is going to be the practical, concrete reasons why I got rid of the T5. This is the last video I'm going to make about this camera, at least for the foreseeable future. I no longer own it. It has been shipped out to a buyer on eBay. I've replaced it with the 2S, which I'm recording on now, and this is going to be all of the reasons why I went ahead and did that. For a long time, right after I picked up the T5, it was kind of the camera that I begrudgingly brought out with me whenever I needed to record video on top of just photos. And even using the 2S now, I'll talk about this camera a lot more in a future video. I already missed the T5 in certain ways, especially just the photography experience with the manual dials. You've heard me and every other Fuji shooter say that 100 times. But really, when you get used to shooting like that, having just the unlabeled command wheels that change shutter speed, aperture, that kind of thing, it just doesn't really hit the same. Having actual tangible physical control over a dial just feels better. It just is a more authentic photography experience, and I really loved that about the T5. But unfortunately, that's kind of where the love ends for that camera. It's tough to balance that craving for a photography-centric experience in a camera with the need to create video content for a platform like YouTube. And so that's the reason that I wanted to create this more practical version of that video, because while I've often talked about how the perfect camera is a bit of a myth and that your gear shouldn't be a barrier to creativity, at the end of the day, it does need to work. The T5 is a great camera at the end of the day. If you have one and love yours, I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I'm not trying to convince you that you're wrong. I'm just sharing my experience, right? You can learn to love a camera despite its quirks. Obviously, my Pro 3 is one of my favorite cameras in the whole world to shoot with, despite the weird screen, despite the handful of issues with that camera. I love all of my film cameras, despite their, various states of disrepair and brokenness. But when it comes down to a main camera, the one that's responsible for client work, professional work, once in a lifetime photos and videos from trips and places that I may never go again, it's really important to me to have something that is rock solid. And I'm not here just to hate on Fujifilm either, but as Fujifilm users, we have a responsibility to be the loudest critics of our cameras. It doesn't matter what Sony and Canon shooters think of Fujifilm. At the end of the day, it matters what we think about Fujifilm. We're the ones that are gonna use their cameras every day, potentially buy the next iteration of them. So Fujifilm needs to be tuned in to what we're saying, and it's very important that we share all of our experiences, positive and negative. Hold them accountable for making products that work as advertised, making enough of them, supporting their older sensors. That doesn't mean that Fujifilm's not a great brand, that you don't love your camera, but we have to hold them accountable too. And one other thing that I will say is just, I want to claim a little bit of responsibility. And I think that part of the reason why I didn't love this camera is actually on me as well, because expecting it to be a hybrid camera, you would think with the switch that switches between photo and video with just like one tap of a button, you'd think it's a hybrid camera. But at the same time, Fujifilm made absolutely no effort to hide that this was a photographer first experience. And so I claim some responsibility for that too, trying to use it as a hybrid camera. This is a photographer's camera, okay? I get it. I get that I, maybe just made the wrong choice to begin with, right? First up, you've heard me say it before, I'm not gonna dwell on it, but just way too much resolution for a consumer level APS-C camera. It's too many pixels on one sensor. It's not only just overkill, but I was perfectly happy and content with 26 megapixels. You can print billboards with 8 or 12 megapixels. 40 is completely overkill in my humble opinion for the average shooter. The alternate that I suggest, over and over to people is if Fuji wants to have resolution beyond, say, 26, 30 megapixels, offer what Sony does with the R cameras. A7 IV is 33 megapixels, but then the A7R IV is a slightly more expensive, more technical option for landscape photographers, people who really benefit from having that resolution, so that the core fan base or core audience isn't forced to pay for things that they're not using. Now, autofocus, auto exposure issues. Continuous autofocus on the T5 is completely unusable, full stop. I'm not even gonna try to sugarcoat. It's unacceptable compared to the other brands that are out there. And then the auto exposure issues, that was a real joy to deal with as a video shooter. I'm predominantly a photographer, a photo shooter, but I had countless clips ruined by the auto exposure, where you start recording and the auto exposure is going up and down and trying to figure out where it needs to be for the scene. Not even in complicated lighting situations, shooting into the sun, that kind of thing, but just normal standard daylight scenarios. Really unacceptable performance from a camera that's $2,000 brand new and only a year or two old. Just really unacceptable, especially when we have so much competition that we could jump to. Then there was also the editing, the color grading, just the color science out of this sensor just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the Pro 3. I could never really quite get the results that I wanted out of it. That's something that I talked about quite a bit in that last T5 video about kind of making do with what you have. That's one of the main points that I always list when people ask me why I jumped from the T5. I just was never super happy with the results in post. I mean, color grading, you can fix a lot of things, but I've heard that echoed back to me by a number of people, so I still think it's worth mentioning. And finally, just the quality is gone downhill. There's no denying it. And if you're comparing it to a T3, a T4, like a Pro 3, it feels plasticky. And I'm pretty easy on my gear, but even after a year, things on it started to sound kind of creaky and squeaky and loose. And it's just, for, again, a year or two old camera, $2,000 new, totally unacceptable build quality. Just the fact that it's declining over time. I will say that I didn't have a problem with the weather sealing, and I shot in rain, snow, ice, a lot of conditions like that, so take it for what you will. Maybe we don't need rock solid metal cameras as long as it keeps the water out, right? The practical durability aspect of it is still there, even if it picks up scratches and it squeaks or whatever over time. But I do think with these tools being so expensive, it just is more, confidence inspiring when you're holding an object that feels solid and premium and sturdy. And now, if you'll let me have a moment as just an insufferable Fuji shooter, I feel like it's lost some of its soul too. I feel like the biggest sin of the T5, in my view, is that it feels like it's wearing a costume. It feels like a Sony, or like it's trying to perform like a Sony and worse yet failing to do so, but then wearing this Instagrammable sort of like analog costume. I knew going into it I wasn't going to have Sony autofocus. Fuji's never had those things. Fuji's never been able to compete with Canon and Sony as far as technical performance. But to keep the analog dials and experience and make it a photographer's camera, but then throw all this stuff at it that barely works, continuous autofocus and eye tracking that doesn't perform, the whole thing as a package to me just always felt like this sort of high-tech, high-res computer in this sort of quirky, gimmicky shell. But looking ahead, unfortunately, this puts me in a bit of a tough spot as a Fuji shooter, especially as a Fuji shooter who jumped ship from Sony a couple of years ago because I liked the ergonomics and the photography experience that this brand had to offer. As a hybrid shooter, I get that I'm asking a lot, and I get that everybody has their own idea of what a perfect camera should be. From my perspective, from my experience, I don't think that I'm the only person on the planet who wants to travel light and have a good photography experience while being able to create high-end, high-quality videos. Sony has 10 cameras that do that. Canon has 10 cameras that do that. Nikon. They all have offerings that are fantastic at both. Now, what I'm not saying is that I'm ready to jump ship from Fuji completely. I'm still willing to give them a shot, to give them some more time. I have this 2S to test out now. I'm gonna try to learn to love it as a photography camera. I've still got the Pro 3 for days when I don't want this massive, SLR style body with me. So I've got options. I'm not in a huge rush, but My expectations are high for the prices that they charge for these cameras. I'm just an ordinary person. I don't make millions of dollars from YouTube. I have to think about these purchases just like you would. However, I'm not gonna let the sunk cost fallacy trick me into believing that I got the best just because I spent a lot of money on it. And I live out of a suitcase. I can't afford tools that don't pull their weight. But yeah, there are definitely other ships to jump to, and I'm not blind to that, so it's something that I'm considering. You've seen other photographers, I don't need to name names, jump ship recently to other camera systems, and there's a reason behind that. Maybe that's another topic for another video. I'm not going to get into it now, but on the bright side, Fuji cameras retain a lot of their value, at least because they can't seem to make enough of them. So now I'm passing the ball to you guys. What do you think? I want to have a conversation in the comments. We can nerd out about the gear. Have you had a hard time with Fujifilm's lineup recently with, trying to find a camera that's right for you? Are you frustrated with the direction? Do you love the direction? Am I totally wrong about the T5? Let me know. Talk to me. Let's make this a good old-fashioned gear discussion in the comments. But that's all for me on this one. Thanks for watching as always. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe for the algorithm. Help me reach some more people. Help me complain about Fujifilm to the right people. And without any further ado, I will see you all in the next one.